and welcome to my channel. My name is Rachel. If you are new here, welcome. And if you're not new here, thank you so much for coming back. We're gonna talk about my favorite makeup brushes. These are brushes I reach for a lot. I really tried to narrow it down to like the ultimate favorite best list of all time, and I still have a lot. So I'm not gonna keep going on and on. We're gonna get right to it. I am going to link all of the brushes down below in the description box because I also wanted to narrow it down to brushes that are still available. I have even more brushes that I love and use all the time that have been discontinued. Those are not on today's list. At the moment of filming, these are, let's say they are still on the website of the brand. Maybe they are currently sold out. Maybe they will be restocking. Maybe they won't be. I don't know, but they are still available on the websites of these brands. Now, of course, as I'm going through these brushes, I would absolutely love to know your favorite brushes. I'm always interested to know what people's favorite tools are when they do their makeup because brushes and tools, in my opinion, make or break the experience and the final look. Am I right? So we're gonna start off with eye brushes first, and I love me a fluffy blending brush. They are just a go-to. Like I need a transition shade anytime I do my makeup. It's just something I need. So I always love finding a good fluffy blending brush. I don't want it to be too big though. Like I used to love the giant fluffy blending brushes. You know what I'm talking about, right? That were the rage 5, 6, 7 years ago. But I want something that's big and fluffy enough that I can kind of have more of a sheer application that is controlled, but not too controlled, okay? So I have two fluffy blending brushes that I want to talk about today that are still available. Like I said, I do have other ones that I love and reach for that have been discontinued. But I will say, I think my favorite current go-to blending brush is the Singe Beauty E03. Angelica Nyqvist created Singe Beauty last year, and her first launch, she launched an eye brush set, and this was part of the first launch. I did purchase this one myself. In fact, I purchased 2 sets of the brushes because honestly, mostly this brush, how much I love this brush, it is, in my opinion, the perfect blending brush because it is not too fluffy or too, you know what I'm talking about? It does slightly taper in at the top. So you are able to get into the crease with that taper, but also it is fluffy enough that it is really easy to blend out a shadow, make it a little bit more of a sheer application, which is what I'm looking for when it comes to a transition shade. The shape of this is just absolutely perfect. Singe Beauty brushes are synthetic hair brushes, but they are ultra soft and they're supposed to mimic natural hair bristles. But I highly recommend this blending brush if you like what I just described. And then for something that's a little bit bigger, a little bit fluffier, if I really want to blow out a shadow, I really like this one from NYX. It just says that it's the number 16 brush. I did buy this on Ulta's website. And on Ulta's website, I think it's listed as just like the blending brush. Of course, like I said, I am going to link all of these brushes down below. But I really, really like this blending brush. It's big without being too big. It's fluffy without being like crazy fluffy. It has a slight taper, not as much as the Singe Beauty one, but it does still have a slight taper. And I feel like it just does a really good job of blending my transition shade. I would say it's a little denser than the Singe, so keep that in mind, but both of these are phenomenal. Now we're gonna start to get smaller with the brushes, because that's typically how I do my makeup. I'm old-fashioned, like I do a transition shade, then I go a little bit lower, then I go a little bit lower, and have the shadows go deeper as they go, most of the time. Of course, there are other times where I mix up my application, but that's typically how I do my makeup. The next set of brushes are still blending brushes, but they're slightly smaller blending brushes. So the first one I want to talk about is one that I've had for years, and it was a pricier brush, but I've had it for years and it is still in phenomenal shape. And this is the Scott Barnes 62 brush. This is such an interesting blending brush because it is very tapered at the top, but it is, again, I would consider a blending brush. There is still fluff to it. This is very, very soft, but I found the point to it really interesting. It is quite long. So again, it is perfect for my eye shape that I can really get in there deep to blend something deeper into my crease, but have these other bristles around it blend it out. And by the way, I should have said this in the beginning, you can use your brushes however you want to for whatever application or whatever part of your makeup you want to. The way that I'm explaining it is how I use it, but you don't have to exactly use the brushes the same way that I do. And if you have these same brushes and you use them in a different way, please leave that in the comments. I think that would really benefit me as well as everybody else reading the comments. But yeah, I really enjoy this for more like my second lightest shade to create depth. And I actually got this brush from watching Tati. I don't watch Tati anymore. I haven't watched her in years, but I used to watch her a lot, 5-6 years ago. And I did get this from her recommendation. Maybe it was one of the times Scott was on her channel, but really good brush. Another brush that's pretty similar, but isn't as long is the BK Beauty 202 brush. This is a smaller blending brush that does have more of a taper, but again, not as much of a taper as the Scott Barnes. The Scott Barnes is more pointy. This one's a little more round, but I do like this again for more of my second lightest shade to be able to buff and blend, not blowing it out as much, getting a little more color payoff, but still a really, really nice smaller blending brush. And if you have smaller eyes and you're looking for a fluffy blending brush, you might like this one. I did receive this one in PR from the brand. It's a really good brush. And by the way, with BK Beauty, I do have a not affiliated code. It's Rachel10. I think it's Rachel10. And you can use that to save 10% off. I don't get a kickback from that. It's just for your benefit. Another brush that is pretty similar, it's a little smaller, getting smaller here. This is the What's Up Beauty R103. Now, I will say What's Up Beauty do have natural hair bristles. I don't love to use natural hair bristles. Actually, the What's Up Beauty brushes, I believe, are the only brushes that I have that have natural hair bristles. So I understand if you don't want to use natural hair bristles, but if you are looking for how many times am I going to say natural hair bristles? They have great brushes. I did receive this one in PR. This is the R103. Again, a smaller tapered blending brush. And I will say I do see a difference when I use natural bristles. The blendability is phenomenal with these brushes, but I do like this one as well for a smaller blending brush application. And then I would say the smallest one of this bunch is the Unearthly Cosmetics UC8-7. This one is, again, more rounded, not as tapered, not as pointy. I love using this one more in the outer corner and blending out with that. It's not really for packing, but more for blending. Really nice. Unearthly has great face brushes as well as eye brushes. I did purchase this one myself. I do have an affiliate code with Unearthly. It is Rachel. For my outer corner, when you can find a good outer corner brush, it's just like, it's winning, right? I mean, there's nothing better. So I have 3 that I want to talk about, and all 3 of these are so, so wonderful. Obviously, that's why they're in this video.
Duh.
Angelica created this brush for Singe Beauty. This is the E06. This one came with her newest brush set that she launched recently. I love this one for the outer corner to pack on a shadow and then use the same brush to blend it out. That to me is also winning. When I don't have to switch brushes so many times, I use this to pack it on and then use the same brush to blend it out. But I usually use this for my deepest shade or one of the deeper shades because it's not super fluffy. It doesn't sheer the color out that much, but it is a fluffy brush that is pinched. So you can see on the side, it's tapered, but it's also wide. Very good brush. Then I have this one is not clean, I'm sorry. This is from What's Up Beauty, very similar to Angelica's, but this one's a little bigger. So this is the What's Up Beauty R105. I love this brush for exactly the same thing, the outer corner and to blend out. But like I said, this one is bigger, so I can't get as controlled of an application, so I have to be careful on which color I use. I don't want to use a color that I don't want it to blow out a little bit above my crease, but I love this brush as well. And then this brush is one of the most unique brushes in my collection. This is from Blend Bunny, and it came with their Forget Me Not collection. It is not sold individually, and it does not have a name. And I actually like all of the brushes in the Forget Me Not brush set. I'm not crazy about the flat brush. Like, it's just like a little flat brush. I don't use brushes. 99% of the time, I don't use brushes to apply shimmers on my lid. I use my finger. Unless I have really long nails, that's kind of the only time. And even then, I still pretty much apply most of it with my finger and then get more detailed with a brush. But anyway, I'm getting off track. This brush in particular, it is an angled brush that is very dense. It is so cool. It's kind of like an angled brush for your face, but for your eyes. And it's described on Blend Buddy's website as a unique angled dense brush that's great for nose contour and snatching other small areas in the contours of the eye and bridge of the nose. So of course you can use that for contouring your nose. I don't contour my nose, but it is perfect for me, what I like, to use it in my outer corner when I want more of an angled application where I can manipulate the shadow that way. But it is dense enough and packed enough that I can really pack the color on. Love this brush. I think it's so cool. So we're gonna take a little intermission in the middle of this eye brush section because I have two eye brush sets that I wanna talk about. And I find it really exciting when I buy a set of brushes, and I love, love, love absolutely every single brush in the set. Like, that is a win if I've ever heard it. So I have two brush sets that I literally use every single one of these brushes over and over and over again. And this one I actually bought two sets of brushes because I loved them so much. So let's start off with the Blend Bunny set. So this was the original Blend Bunny brush set that she came out with a couple years ago, at least 2-3 years ago. And these are a set of smaller brushes. Now, the biggest brush, in my opinion, is still pretty small for my preferences. I have quite big eyes. I have a lot of lid space. I don't have hooded eyes. So I like big brushes, but this one I like to use. This is the B5. I like to use this one more in the outer corner when I want blending still, but a little bit more color payoff. It reminds me a lot of the Unearthly one. I would say the Blend Bunny one is a little more densely packed. And then all the rest of these, the B1, B2, B3, and B4 are smaller pencil brushes. I use all four of these interchangeably for my lower lash line to blend out shadows. I find that all four of these are really good for that. Some of them are a little bit longer, some of them are a little bit shorter, so it just depends on how I want the color payoff to look. If I want a little bit more color payoff, I take a shorter, denser brush. If I want the color payoff to be a little bit more sheer, I take the longer, fluffier brush. But I love these for the lower lash line. I do an affiliate code with Blend Bunny. It is Rachel as well. My affiliate codes are always down below in the description box, by the way, if you're wondering. And then the other brush set, I never hear anybody talk about Alamar Cosmetics brushes, and I love their brushes, love their brushes. This brush set in particular, I am obsessed with all three of these brushes, and two of them I use almost daily. The third one is more of like a specialty brush, but I find it so unique. So this is the Spanglish Brush Trio. It is still available, and at the moment of filming this, Alamar Cosmetics is having a 50% off sale, and this brush set is $18, so you could get it for $9, which is $3 per brush, which is insane to me. So let's start off with this brush. This has to be one of my favorite brushes of all time. This is the Detailed Diffuser brush. And this is a really small, super fluffy, not tapered at all brush. I love using this for my lower lash line to blend out shadows if I want just basically a transition shade, but on my lower lash line. That's really what I think of it as. I use this almost every single time I do my makeup just to get that soft diffuse edge on my bottom lash line. And even sometimes in the corner if I need to do some precise blending. Absolutely love this brush. The other brush that I use a lot is the Pigment Packer brush. I love this brush for my inner corner. I love it, especially when I'm doing a matte inner corner because it is more of a densely packed, not super thin flat brush. There is some oomph to it. There's some chunk to it. It picks up matte shadows beautifully and it fits perfectly into at least my inner corner. Love this for inner corner. And then this brush I think is so interesting and cool. It is basically a small fan brush. This is called the Crease Control brush. I use this whenever I do a cut crease. I don't do cut creases all that often. I am a professional dancer, so I do like to do cut creases when I'm performing or when I'm going to competition. And this is literally the perfect shape for my eyelid to pick up concealer, carve out my lid, and then turn it over and dip into whatever shadow I want to put over that cut crease and pack it on. It is the most perfect fan shape. It covers a lot of ground so you can get the job done quickly, because I don't love using a small brush for a cut crease. It just takes too long and ain't nobody got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
So this is the perfect shape, the perfect size, and such an interesting brush. All three of these Alamar brushes that I talked about are not available individually. So I'm so happy that I like all of them, because to me it is 100% worth buying the set. All right, now we're gonna go to the lower lash line, talking more about individual brushes. So I have another one from Alamar Cosmetics. This is part of their Ojitos set. You cannot buy these individually. There are a set of 3. I would say that this one is, for me, like the only brush out of the 3 that I really love and use a lot. They do have a fluffy blending brush that I like as well, but it's not like one I reach for all the time. And like I said, I'm narrowing this down, but this isn't a very unique brush. A lot of brands make brushes like this, but it is just a flat definer brush, very, very skinny and flat. And I love using this to pack almost like a liner on my lower lash line, close to my lash line, the deepest shade that I want to use on my lower lash line. Did that make sense? You get what I'm saying, right? I hope so. Another one that's similar to that, but it's not as flat and not as long, is this one from Morphe. And this I don't think is sold individually either, but just wanted to mention it because it is a brush I reach for all the time. This is the Morphe and Ariel collab that they did, and this is the A18. So this is another, like more of a smudgy brush, but I love using this on my lower lash line, either to like replace this, what I already said I do with this, or after I go in with my deepest shade, I take this and smudge it out either on its own with no extra product on the brush, or I take the next lightest shade and blend it out with that. But I find this little brush to be so versatile and so unique and wonderful. And then my other brush from Morphe, I don't really have a lot of Morphe brushes anymore, but I do reach for these 2 Morphe brushes a lot. This is the M506. I actually prefer the M507, which is just like this, but a little bit more tapered and pointed at the top, but they don't sell it anymore. So this is the closest thing I can find to it. It is a little bit more of a rounded top, but I also love using this for the lower lash line to blend out my shadows. It's not as fluffy as the Alamar one that I talked about from the Spanglish set, where I really use it to diffuse or create like a transition shade. This one's a little denser, so I would use this with a slightly deeper shade to blend out my lower lash line. Really good. All right, I have 2 brushes to talk about for my inner corner. I did already tell you about the Alamar Cosmetics one from the Spanglish brush set, but I have 2 more to talk about. If I want to apply a shimmer inner corner, I love the Singe E01 brush. It is a little bit thicker of a brush. It's not super flat. Like I said, I love a flat brush that's not super skinny flat. I like when it has a little bit of juice to it, you know? I feel like it just picks up the product so much better. But the thing I love about this is it's pointed. So it fits into my inner corner perfectly. It picks up the shadows perfectly, and it just gives the perfect application for my eye shape in my inner corner. Of course, you can use this on the lid as well, and I have used it on the lid as well, but I don't typically use brushes for my lid. And then if I want to apply a matte inner corner, I love the What's Up Beauty R109. I did receive all of the What's Up Beauty brushes in PR, by the way. But this one is just like a big domed pencil brush. And I would never use this on my lower lash line because I think it's too big for that part of my eye. But for my inner corner, I just boop, boop, boop into the shadow, boop, boop, boop into the inner corner, and it fits perfectly. It's the perfect density. It's great. I love it. And then I have 2 detailed brushes that I use when I want to do something extra little special with my look. So the first one is the BK208, and this is just a itty bitty angled brush. If I want to create a wing with an eyeshadow, this is the brush I go to. It is so foolproof. It is so tiny. A lot of times with angled brushes, I don't love how thick they are, where it's almost like there's several bristles together, and then when you wash it a few times, they end up kind of separating so that the angled brush becomes almost fanned out. Does that make sense? This one is so tiny, and it's literally like you're taking a fine tip pen and drawing a line with it. So I love using this for an outer corner wing, or even if I want a little bit of a detail work with something special. This is a really good tiny angled brush. And then the other brush that I love for detail work is the Unearthly Cosmetics UC 8-11. This one is starting to kind of get old and it is fanning out a little bit. Usually I use this more for water activated liners. When I get it wet, it does end up kind of sticking together. I love using this for, like I just said, water activated liners. When I want to add a little detail here, a little detail there, this is the brush I go to. All right, so those are all the eye brushes that I wanted to talk about. And now let's talk about some face brushes. So first with the face brushes, I have a foundation brush. I apply my foundation with a sponge, I would say 90% of the time. The only time I don't is if I'm too lazy to get up to wet my sponge. Honestly, that's pretty much the only time. This is the brush I used today, and this is the brush I usually go to for my foundation. This is the BK Beauty 101. It is just a really big, flat, yet angled brush. BK Beauty brushes are phenomenal. They're very high quality. They're a little on the pricier side, but you can definitely tell when you're using them, they're very good quality. And I love a large foundation brush because I just want to get the job done fast. Like, that's another advantage to using a foundation brush is it's quite quick for application versus a sponge, for me anyway. And I really like the size of this one. I think it's great. It airbrushes the foundation. It doesn't leave streak marks or like brush streaks on your face. It's really, really good. And I get more, obviously you get more coverage with a foundation brush versus a sponge. So that's nice if I want more coverage. For concealer, another part of my makeup that I don't really usually use a brush for, it's only when I'm too lazy to get up to wet my sponge or if I'm just feeling it that day, I guess. I have two concealer brushes that I want to talk about. The first one is also from BK Beauty. This is the BK and Angie Hot and Flashy A506. I love this brush. I think it is genius. It's very reminiscent of the foundation brush where it is flat yet angled. It's got the perfect density. It is super soft and it fits in the inner corner so well. I remember the first time I used this, I was blown away. I was like, wow, how come I don't use a brush more often to apply my concealer? Same thing as I said as the foundation brush, it definitely gives you more coverage than if you were using a sponge. And then Angelica created something not exactly similar, but a very good also concealer brush. This is the Singe Beauty F02. I did receive this one in PR. I bought the Angie Hot and Flashy and I got this BK Beauty in PR. So this one I used today to apply my concealer. Same angled applicator, but this one is a little bigger and a little more dense. I really like using this to blend out my concealer. It fits really nicely in there. It gets the job done a little faster than the Angie Hot and Flashy one because it is bigger and a little more dense. And then she also suggests using this for blending out your eye primer if you want to do that. Now we're going to go to bronzer. I have two bronzer brushes to talk about. The first one is from Alamar Cosmetics. This is the complexion brush. This is sold in a set that it's not available on its own, unfortunately. And this is the only brush of the three that I even have. Oh no, I do have one of the other brushes. The third brush I did declutter because I just wasn't using it, but this is not a very unique brush. You can get a brush like this pretty often, but it's an angled brush. I love this for bronzer because it fits my face perfectly. I am able to kind of just tap it. With cheek products, I'm much more of a tapper than a swiper. What are you? Are you a tapper or a swiper? Let me know in the comments. I don't know why. I feel like it doesn't disturb whatever's underneath. This fits my face perfectly. It's very soft. It's kind of on the medium size, so it's not super small, but it's not super big. It gets the job done fast while being able to just like blend it out. It's really a really good brush. I love it. The other brush that I use a lot, more in the summertime when I have more of a tan, where I'm not so worried about my bronzer application, is the Essence bronzer brush. I've had this for a really long time. It's very affordable. It's from Essence, for goodness sake. But this is much more of a fluffy, big bronzer brush. Like I said, in the summertime when I'm already pretty tan and I just want to warm my face up and want to go haphazard with a bronzer, this is a really good one. Like, it just is really easy to fluff around. It's not too big. It's not too dense. It's got a little bit of give to it, but it's not too floppy. It's just like the perfect density. It is fluffy out and then it's rounded at the top. So I really like this brush a lot. I got this one, I think at the drugstore, but they do have it at Ulta. For blush, I love an angled brush. Just like I said with the bronzer application, I prefer more of like a tapping motion when I'm doing my blush. So I have two angled blush brushes to talk about. I have the Moda Pro BMX 120 angle brush. I actually got this at, I want to say like Marshalls or TJ Maxx, but they do have it online. I did see that. But it is just a really good angled brush. It's a little more dense. It's quite small, so I'm able just to pinpoint my cheek area. It doesn't get out of control too fast. And I just love an angled brush. I have a few of these. This is the only one that I have right now that is still available. But I have several of these. You can usually find brushes like this at TJ Maxx or Marshalls from different brands. But the one that I think is very unique is the one from Singe. This is Singe Beauty F06. I did get this one in PR. It's way smaller and a little bit more floppy. So I think it's really nice if you want a little bit more of a sheerer application and if you want much more of a precise pinpointed application, or you just have a smaller face or smaller cheek area. This is a perfect one just to be able to target certain areas. I feel like this would also be really nice for bronzer if you want to just get in the hollow of your cheeks. This is a really versatile, I actually feel like you could even use this for highlighter. It's like that perfect small size. I love an angled brush. I love an angled brush for my cheek products. And then the only highlight brush that I want to talk about is this one from Singe Beauty. I have a few that I've used over the years, but this one has changed my life. I know that sounds dramatic, but it's my perfect highlighter brush. And this is the Singe F07. I got this one in PR. She created just a perfect highlighter brush. I have highlighter brushes in my collection that are really fluffy and floppy that just fling product everywhere. I have highlighter brushes in my collection that are really dense and almost create like a stripe on the cheek because they're so dense. This is just like the perfect in between. It does have a little bit of fluffiness, but it also tapers. It has that really soft feeling, but it's not floppy. And it just is the perfect size for my cheeks personally, that I'm able to get it right in that upper cheekbone area. It's not going everywhere, but it's also not so small that I have to like really work it and work it and work it to get what I need. It is just a perfect highlighter brush. I haven't had it for that long, but ever since I've gotten it, I've been using it nonstop. And then I have 3 brushes for cream cheek products that I love to use. Let's start off with the BK106. I got this one in PR. This is actually marketed as a foundation brush. So again, you don't have to use your brushes in the way that they are intended. You can use them however you want. For me personally, like I already said, a foundation brush that's this small, I don't love. It just takes longer than I need. So I love this one for cream bronzer. I feel like it fits perfectly around the outer portion of my face. It's got the perfect density because it is meant for a cream product. It's meant for foundation. And BK Beauty, again, really soft, really, really nice quality. But just for me personally, it's just perfect for cream bronzer. And then I have 2 brushes that I use interchangeably for cream bronzer and cream blush, just depending on the moment. So this one from BK Beauty is the 109. This one I did purchase myself. It is meant to mimic their foundation brush, but just in a much smaller form. And it is perfect for cream bronzer or cream blush. Because you have that angled application, it just fits perfectly onto this portion of the face. It's smaller, so you're getting a little bit more of a targeted application. It's a genius. It's a genius little mini foundation brush. Of course, you could use it for foundation if you wanted as well. And then this brush I have at least 3 of. This is the e.l.f. Complexion Duo brush. I don't really use the small side. I typically just use the top. And this came out with their CC cream that they released 3 or 4 years ago. And they are definitely trying to mimic the IT Cosmetics Complexion Duo brush, which I also own, and they are the same. There is no difference at all. I have to actually look at the label to see which is which, because I don't feel like there's any difference at all whatsoever. The weight is the same, the performance is the same, everything's the same. So I would say save your money on the IT Cosmetics and grab the e.l.f. So anyway, like I was saying, it's meant to be, I think it's meant to be a foundation brush. But again, I mean, I can use this as foundation, but I love it for cream bronzer, for cream blush. It is just perfection. It's got the perfect density, and I like that this one is a little bit more round. So it's a little bit softer of an application, a little bit more of an airbrush application, not as much pigment off the bat, but just beautiful, just beautiful. All right, and that is it for my favorite brushes in my collection. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, leave me a comment down below letting me know your favorite brushes that you have, that you use all the time, that you reach for constantly. Please let us all know in the comments. And if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. That helps me out a lot when you do that. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, I would love it if you would consider subscribing before you leave. I do upload videos weekly, and I'd love to see you back on my channel again. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.